In Hollywood, it happens all the time. Even the most promising projects never make it to release. Sometimes it's a script that keeps getting rewritten, sometimes the final cut just doesn't hit the quality the studio needs. We all remember how Batgirl got axed when it was basically finished. Fans tried to save it with petitions and online campaigns, but studios make decisions based on cold numbers and the widest possible profit. If a risky project has to go, it goes. And that's exactly what happened with The Last Ronin. Just a few days ago, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that the R-rated adaptation of The Last Ronin is no longer in active development. The darkest and most mature Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story is now on an indefinite pause, and that stings because the potential was huge. New comics kept expanding the Roninverse, fans were hyped, everything pointed to a serious hit. But the reality is simple. The movie isn't officially cancelled, but it's frozen, and that classic studio wording gives people a tiny bit of hope while also making it pretty clear that it'll take a miracle to bring it back. Early last year, the internet blew up when word spread that we were getting the most brutal, most unique take on the Turtles ever. Tyler Burton Smith was writing the script and Walter Hamada was producing. Hamada had been steering the Snyder-era DCEU for years, so he definitely knows how to handle dark material. After the Paramount and Skydance merger in August, the project was confirmed again, the script was almost done, the studio was looking at directors, everything was moving forward. Slowly, but forward. Around that time, insiders kept dropping hints that the movie was alive and well, and for a while, James Wan was even in the mix. But the newest reports paint a different picture. Paramount has shifted direction. The studio wants something with maximum reach and predictable profit, not a risky R-rated revenge story. In this new strategy, a grim and tragic Last Ronin is easier to sideline than to fund, especially when a family-friendly Turtles movie can make more money with less risk. So the official statement left a small window open, saying the project is frozen and could return someday. But in reality, the studio has moved on to a more profitable plan. The comic itself tells a story from an alternate future where only one turtle is still alive, and he sets out on a final mission of revenge to take down Shredder's grandson. Heavy drama, brutal violence, total emotional burnout for the hero. It stood out instantly from the usual Turtles stories. The 5-issue run got huge critical praise, and the follow-ups only cemented its status. Around the same time, a third-person RPG was announced, meant to expand the world instead of simply retelling the comic. The game hasn't been cancelled, but there's zero news. No release date, no trailer, no gameplay. Fans are starting to doubt it'll survive long enough to actually launch. Right now, it looks like Paramount is leaning fully into the family side of the franchise. Mutant Mayhem had a modest box office, but audiences loved it and it sparked a fresh wave of interest. It even got a spin-off show, though that's ending after season 2. The big thing is the animated sequel, already in development and slated for fall 2027. And on top of that, the studio is planning a new live-action movie based on the games, produced by Neil Moritz, the guy behind Sonic, Fast and Furious, and a ton of other massive franchises. If anyone knows how to balance broad appeal with smooth production, it's him. It really looks like we're heading into a full era of younger-leaning TMNT projects. Everything big on the slate now is aimed at teens and families, which means toned-down violence, softer ratings, and a lighter vibe overall. That's great for bringing in a new generation, but longtime fans who grew up on the comics and the older shows were dreaming of that brutal Ronin take. With all these changes, a lot of people are starting to look back at Michael Bay. He recently signed a multi-project deal with Paramount, and every now and then fans start wondering if he might return to the Turtles. There's nothing concrete yet though, just speculation and wishful thinking. Right now, Bay is locked in on Transformers. That series is his main legacy at the studio, the one that made billions and shaped how modern blockbusters look. But give it 2 or 3 years and the next installment will be out, and that's only one of the projects he's involved in. There have been constant rumors about him stepping in on a Call of Duty movie. But out of everything Bay could return to, there's one franchise that practically calls out for closure: his unfinished Ninja Turtles trilogy. Paramount has been working with him for years, and even when the studio wasn't sure about some of his directing choices, they always kept him as a producer. The plan for the third film followed the same model. Back in 2018, news broke that the Turtles were getting a soft reboot. The third movie was supposed to wrap up the story of the original team while smoothly setting up a fresh version of the franchise. The main villain would have have been Lord Dreg, pulled from the animated shows and tied to cosmic storylines. In the film version, Dreg would be hiding on Earth from an intergalactic patrol, and the whole plot leaned into sci-fi action. The Turtles would eventually end up as fugitives, April would get a full detective arc, and the finale would open Dimension X. That would have acted as a direct gateway to a multiverse setup, something that TMNT Animation has played with for years. The trilogy would have gotten a clean finish, and at the same time, the audience would meet a new generation of Turtles ready for their own adventures. Insiders claimed that early drafts gave Dreg a different origin. He would arrive straight from another dimension, trying to drag the Turtles back with him. Some versions even included alternate takes on the heroes, and a few familiar characters didn't make it out alive. It was a bold attempt to bridge two universes while keeping the legacy of the first films intact. The cast had confirmed they were signed for a full trilogy, so the intent to continue was definitely there. But the studio decided the ideas were too risky and pulled the plug. Not long after that, Paramount went through major changes. New ownership, new leadership, full restructuring, the new bosses are acting aggressively in the market, even pushing toward a possible deal to acquire Warner Brothers. And alongside all these ambitious moves, they're trying to revive their own franchises. Bringing Michael Bay back is part of that strategy, and finishing his Turtles trilogy could easily become one of the projects they bet on. With the multiverse trend still going strong, the idea of closing out an old storyline while launching a new one feels surprisingly fitting. His two Turtles movies got plenty of criticism, but looking back, they still established a distinct tone and visual identity that people recognize instantly. Yeah, The Last Ronin could have been that perfect counter move. Darker, heavier, way more grown up, packed with bleak atmosphere and real emotional weight. But now that it's been pushed into limbo, the idea of circling back to Bay's trilogy feels like the most realistic path forward. A potential third film fits neatly into the teen-friendly lane Paramount is chasing right now. The first two movies were already built for a broad audience, and that kind of approach is easier to market, easier to scale, and safer for big studio spending. Still, there's another possibility. Paramount might walk away from Bay's legacy entirely and reboot everything from scratch. Fresh intro to Shredder, fresh cast, fresh style. Whether that kind of reset can survive in today's landscape is hard to predict. Hollywood is drowning in remakes as it is, clinging to recognizable brands instead of backing original stories. But at the same time, there's still room for auteur work and niche genre movies, so the door for experimentation isn't shut. And even if Bay doesn't return, the franchise itself isn't going anywhere. The Turtles remain one of Paramount's biggest long-term assets, and the studio knows the brand works across animation, live action, and games. They've been quietly expanding the universe in different directions, testing what clicks with audiences and what doesn't. In that sense, a reboot might not be a creative retreat, but a strategic move to unify everything under one coherent vision. There's also the shift happening inside the studio after the Skydance merger. New leadership loves structured cinematic universes, and they're planning franchises in advance instead of jumping from film to film. If that mindset reaches TMNT, the next iteration could be built from the ground up as a multi-phase plan. That means clearer long-term arcs, stronger world building, and tighter connections between movies, shows, and future games. Another thing to watch is technology. Paramount's been investing in virtual production and hybrid animation pipelines. A new Turtles movie could lean into that tech, blending stylized visuals with live action the way Mutant Mayhem opened the door stylistically. That would give the reboot its own identity without repeating Bay's hyper-real aesthetic or Ronin's gritty tone. Whether the studio plays it safe or goes bold, the next few years will define what TMNT looks like for an entire generation.